Excellent. Well, hey guys, thanks for joining me. I know that, what time is it there, Darrell?
It's coming up to 5 a.m.
All right. So you're bright-eyed, ready to go at the start of the day. Alistair's done. He's already vaping and drinking.
Well, yeah,
I'm just assuming, Alistair.
Well, he can't even put his headset on properly.
Yeah. So, well, anyway, thanks guys for joining this. I know that we're live streaming here on Facebook and as well as recording this, but this is kind of a follow-up to our activities as MVP community reporters at Ignite in Orlando back in September. And we thought it would be good to come together and share some of our takeaways since then. So, Darrell, I mean, you've been the most effort to be here on the call. Why don't you start off? Kind of what's been happening since Ignite with you?
I've been sleeping or trying to. No, really. So leading up, all of us know there was so much prep, and there were more early morning meetings like this. But since Ignite, it has been not just about catching up with content, which is one of the topics of today's talk between us all, but also just making sense of it and hearing some of these discussions from customers and from other IT pros as well. You see some of the announcements are starting to come out. They're actually becoming reality. So it's all about seeing that happen and being part of that motion.
Yeah. And Alistair, how about yourself? I mean, I've seen you since Ignite, but what else?
That's the problem, right? We've spent
it is a problem. Yeah, I know.
Two weeks together.
Yeah.
And the dust is settled. We had one trip out to Dubai, which
that's right. You just got back.
I literally, yes, I got back from Dubai. We were there for about 4 days. Yeah, 4 days. Yeah. And my conference travel season is over. So I'm looking to about 2 months of rest, and then it starts in Feb again.
Yeah. That's it. Same. So I of course I got back from Ignite and had a bit of a pause, and then turned around. I was in South Africa for 2.5 weeks, and then DC for a workshop, home for a few days, and it was immediately right back out. I keynoted the SharePoint Saturday Vienna, which is the first SharePoint Saturday, which is a lot of fun. Great location there at Microsoft in Vienna, and actually got to explore Vienna. So Stefan, thanks a lot for giving us a tour. Sebastian and I got a tour, walking tour. And then went over to the European SharePoint Office 365 and Azure conference in Dublin, Ireland.
Is that the official name now?
Yeah, I know. So the European SharePoint conference has been expanded because it's not just about SharePoint anymore. And so it's kind of everything under the sun, but still with the focus around SharePoint. That was an amazing event. It was the biggest numbers, this was the 6th event. And they jump around country to country, and next year it's going back to Copenhagen. Which it was there 3 years ago, I think.
I'm actually in Copenhagen at the end of February. I'm presenting at an intranet conference, strangely enough.
Well, you can wait for ESPC end of November, so a bit of a pause in between your February trip, and but that was a lot of fun. I mean, beautiful weather, and rained a little bit, which I love, but didn't get to see as much as Ireland in my first trip there. But like you. That was my last major travel. I'm doing a couple days in Redmond, out meeting with the product team, and I'm in Denver for like your 4-day, and I'm doing a community day that's happening in Denver in early December, just overnight, and then taking a vacation with the family to Hawaii. So that's my travel.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I remember you booking your flights in Durban. Your wife just confirmed that it was booked to travel to Hawaii for your holiday. Yeah.
And so now I'm just trying to do like everybody is, end of year, looking at mileage, trying to optimize for next year, the status, through
this program. I'm trying to book flights now so that I can be bumped up for next year to gold on Emirates.
So I think the point of this too, and I'll let you guys jump into it. Maybe we go the same order, Darrell, if you want to go, and then Alistair, and then I'll wrap up. But the point of this was to share sessions. Like, we were so busy. There's so much happening at Ignite that I don't know how many sessions that you guys that you weren't presenting, that you were able to attend. I can count on one hand how many sessions that I attended and have a bunch to spare. And just because we were so busy running around doing activities. And so I've been watching recordings, catching up on a number of different things. So what we thought we'd do is each of us share 3 sessions that we didn't attend live, that we, looking at it afterwards, the content, it's like this, hey, we highly recommend people go take a look at. So Darrell, why don't you start us off with your 3?
Yeah, and I'll leave it open to be chatty as well as your past comment. I managed to attend maybe 2.5 sessions live, aside from the 7-ish sessions that I presented.
Yeah.
I say half a session because as a community reporter, I needed to talk to someone sensibly about Azure, and I felt I needed to attend part of that session before I came back and talked to an analyst.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were so busy, we did need to do a lot of catch up with the content, and to be honest, I still am. And they did a reasonable job this year with capturing the recordings. I did feel like it was split across YouTube and some of the Azure media services stuff that was embedded in the tech community. So the sessions that I caught up with quite smartly afterwards, one that I wanted to catch up with was this concept around keeping up with change in Office 365. It was actually a session that I did run along the same themes, and it was a community, like a meetup. And this session that I watched as a recording, Brian Levinson and Mike, I can't say his surname again, begins with Z. He covered off, that change is definitely happening, and what they're doing to improve that for the IT pro. One of the passions of what we do on the show is covering the message center. So they were looking at a lot of changes that they were making in there, and as a panel discussing change in general with the people in the room. I know, like Al, in your position, you probably have to deal a bit with change and letting people know about that. So did you pick up anything about that?
I'm the most far removed person from worrying about organizational change and actually having those sort of conversations that you would normally have with your customers. And Darrell, thanks for publishing my blog post on regarding 365 about the demise of the IT pros. I think really for me, that's starting the conversation. No, adoption, transition management, it's always a big thing. Got to have the right conversation. You've got to have the right budget. A lot of people don't spend money on this because they go, it's technology. People will take it. But for me, it's really around 4 things: governance, training, change, and adoption. Those are the 4 plans you have to spend a serious amount of money on in order to transition anyway. And I as much as I like Microsoft's messaging, they've got a lot. They even had a webinar on adoption. I think it's either coming up or it was on the 20th. Specifically around adoption. And that for me is good to see Microsoft looking at spending time doing that.
Yeah, so even in your position where you don't have to worry too much about change as an IT pro, you still see its importance, and you can, like you said, your blog post pointed out that this is an area that IT pros need to focus on too, as they're dealing with change a lot and they have less to do with the nuts and bolts in the background. Christian, what do you do in terms of keeping up with change?
Well, it's, one thing that I do is I pay attention to the Regarding 365 blog. And it's actually, it's funny, as I was had a conversation with a CEO of a vendor that's located here in the Salt Lake Valley. And he asked that question, like, how do you keep up with the different things? And I said, well, there's a couple things. You have to find resources, and one is to go in and watch like your live stream and series that you do with Daniel, and where you go through, and when I'm able to catch those and very quickly summarize the weekly announcements. And so there are only a couple different places where I go and look on a regular basis. The other thing that I do just to manage change, it's an entirely different discussion, but monitoring what is changing. The other thing I do is I monitor very closely the Collab 365 daily emails of all the blog posts. I skim through that, see what I might have missed that I need to go follow up and read. So I think between the stuff that you're doing, the shared blog, which I'm part of the extended team for regarding 365, like Alistair as well, and but then those the dailies from Collab 365, that's my pipeline of what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. So this recording does talk around change and the importance of keeping up with it, and certainly looking at the different sources that we have, I guess, less and less time. We've really got to be quite choosy with the sources that we go with to keep up with change. So the other video that I caught up with and session I caught up with was around Microsoft Teams. There was plenty of content there. But one that really took my interest was what they're doing with meetings. And the reason I suggest you look at this video is that it phrases it really well. We think, okay, big deal. We can start a meeting in a conversation thread. Great. But if you watch this video, it'll really explain it quite well why this is such a valuable thing. And maybe you haven't realized the power of what this does because you might not be in good meeting habits. But if we are trying to run an effective meeting, we do have, well, perhaps the meeting has come about because of a conversation. We do have pre-work. We have conversation beforehand. We usually have assets that we might want to share, like files or videos and things like that. During the meeting, of course, there's the usual activities, a proper agenda, some notes, etc. We might record it. And then afterwards, we've got some tasks and things to do. And our experience of that when we've been using Skype or other tools and email and SharePoint, this and that, is that it's bitsy. It's all like, okay, have you uploaded this? So where's the attachment for that? And I haven't read the conversation thread, and it's all everywhere, But with Microsoft Teams, it is one thread. You could start that meeting, or you could start the meeting from a thread. You upload the files, they're all part of that conversation. You start that meeting later on or schedule it, excuse me. And you record it. Even the recording is going to be part of that thread. It's pushed off to stream and transcribe, but it's all there. And I did glean a couple of things within their demos. They're trying out something like tasks. I know we've seen Wiki come up, and it's like a separate tab or thing. It looks like they're trying out something called tasks that are part of the conversation thread, that you can assign a task to someone and all becomes part of that thread as well. So it basically, the power of keeping all that meeting together and tracking those assets and keeping on that thread. Would you find that useful, Christian?
Oh no, definitely. And it's I mean, my thought around this was just how important the whole community management aspect of now the modern workplace is. And this is a perfect example of that, with all of the chaos that happens in the life of a project, much less, across multiple projects, having, that the whole team's concept of bringing those things together, there still needs to be redirection. Sometimes a conversation happens in a thread on a channel that's not the right place to then keep that persistent history of that conversation. I actually run into this with my team, where we're talking about one client that's in one channel, and with all of the assets that are relevant to that client across those tabs, and then we'll jump right into the next client. I'll be like, whoa, stop, let's jump over to that thread on that channel, just so that it's a record, it's a history that's tied in context to everything else.
Yeah. And so along with that, this is one thing that is missing from Teams at the moment. We can currently do it with Yammer. We can capture the URL and paste it in to say, have a look at this. Yep. That is something that I did get a bit of time with the Microsoft Teams product team later on, and that's something they showed me too, that we'll soon be able to right click and copy and paste a link to a conversation and bring that into another thread.
Right, which is key. It's I sound like a broken record around talking about where it's all going. That it's all of these things. These feeds are all part of the substrate. They're part of the graph. They're all within the environment, part of the groups and the permission structure around that. And so, but to be able to go and kind of compartmentalize the assets that you need and cross-pollinate those conversations to where you need to refer to that conversation is going to be essential, because conversations are knowledge. It's part of your knowledge management system, and that they need to be transportable, shareable.
Look, on the
Alistair,
team side,
Alistair, what do you think?
On the team stuff, Darrell?
Yeah.
Darrell? On the team stuff, I actually like what they're doing in education. So for me, that is great. They've taken the Learner Companion, sucked that code into Learner Companion. It's about 3-year-old code, 4-year-old code. And they've sucked that into features inside of Teams. So what you can do with Teams now for EDU, you get the OneNote classroom notebook that comes all the way through, and you've got all that functionality. So assignments will now come through on the bell. There's notations around what you can do with assignments inside of Teams, so teachers can actually physically write when they grade papers. You can submit your assignments back through it, and it's promoting a collaborative ecosystem for lecturers and students. And lecturers have, what was it again? They are able to store information directly about the student to the student, so parents can also have a view on that.
And so tying that all together with the meetings capability, you can see it being far easier for a teacher or a lecturer to run an online meeting. That has often been a challenge to truly have that online class. And with it being in the Teams environment, it's far, far easier. So yeah, good point there. Well, my last video, and I won't take too much more time, but was the one that Naomi Moneypenny did, and she was interviewing United Airlines and a couple of other customers. It was looking at personalizing a social internet with Yammer, SharePoint, Teams, Dell, OneDrive. People list all the products. But what I did like that she tied together was, apart from showing off some of the new features in SharePoint and Teams, etc., was that it's truly shown a good example of digital workplace tools coming together and how they center around an intranet. We took the concept of the inner loop and the outer loop, which was often repeated in terms of what tool you use and when, the Teams being the inner loop and Yammer being the outer loop. But she showed it really beautifully with how this all works together in a social intranet. Your intranet team, planning team that are developing it, might use Teams to communicate and get all the assets together and decide on things. And Yammer may come in as part of the outer loop as she began to demonstrate things like the communication sites or the news that you're creating. That this Yammer web part was very easily added to a page, and then it can help to generate and continue conversations across the organization. Plenty of other stuff to show in that one, but I recommend that you look at that too. So the codes, I think there was the first one I mentioned was BRK2040. That's Keep Up with Office 365 Evolution in the Real World. Second one was Understanding Meetings in Microsoft Teams, BRK3333. And my fourth one was Build Your Personalized Social Intranet with SharePoint, Yammer, Delve, and I've lost the code.
Darrell?
Yeah, that was a That's right. But in fact, if you go to tweet it, it cuts it off. Now that we've got 280 characters, you could fit the whole thing in there. But anyway.
Excellent. All right, Alistair, so your 3 suggestions people should take a look at. Yeah.
So for me, there was obviously the big one, accelerate your digital transformation with SharePoint and OneDrive. I think everyone should go and gravitate towards BRK 2188. 2184. You can also pick up all these videos if you head over to techcommunity.microsoft.com, select the events tab, and there'll be a Microsoft Ignite section, and all the videos are there. So I strongly suggest you go there because there's nice commentary as well. So for me,
that's another great, and that's a great point too, because the each of the presenters are also on there. You can ask questions, see the rest of the conversation that's happening around some of those sessions. Some of them, there's a lot of conversation happening. I was noticing that this past week as well. So if you've got questions and want to connect with the speakers for any of these sessions, that's where you do it in Microsoft Tech Community. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
Back to you.
not a problem. There's a lot of stats in the that was one of the keynotes that Jeff Teeper did, right? And I think he repeated it at ESPC as well.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's decent stats. There's a lot of demos around the new features that are coming for SharePoint and OneDrive, like the file viewers. We've been talking about it. We actually did quite a bit of recap of this at each of the SharePoint Saturdays in South Africa. So it is very fresh in my mind. Yeah.
Yep.
So I definitely go for that one as my first one. The second one I'd like to talk about is the Office 365 groups conversation, the vision and roadmap, the overview and roadmap, the one that Christopher Feisinger and Shipla Ranganathan did, if I get their names right.
I'm just going to soundbite that. That's awesome. Okay.
But for me, it was, and I actually did this session at the SharePoint Saturday as well, for those who want to know a bit more about getting to grips with Office 365 groups. And I think the message, the central message was that groups is a service, it's not an application. Because everyone's going, well, should I use groups? Should I use Yammer? Should I use Teams? It's not an application, it's a service. It's the glue at the bottom. And also looking at everything that's coming out on top of groups. So all the policies around managing groups and expiring groups and the retention policies around groups and what you can do with the various types of groups that you get, because it's not just you get different types of 365 groups, like a DL, a standard DL, you still get a security group and all of those things. So it was great to see Microsoft put effort in clearing up that message, because a lot of people have been confused, and also a lot around how to adopt and how to best implement using Office 365 groups in your organization. And I think it was Matt Way that actually did a great infographic on groups, and when you create X, this is what you get out of it. So when you create a Yammer channel, these are the additional things, or a stream channel, or a team. What are you getting with that, and what groups actually spins up for you as part of the process when you're creating all these additional functional components that make up the smorgasbord of apps that we now work inside of.
Yep. It's an important topic. People need to understand the nuances there. And I suspect we need to watch that space, that it might change in the future.
Will.
Yeah, I don't know if groups as such would change.
Well, but what the nuances between them and what's provision and how and some of the differences.
Yeah, I think that would definitely, more so they're bolting on more capabilities. Now that the dust is settled around what Office 365 groups are and what the vision is and the roadmap for that. And then last but not least, as an IT pro or a changing IT pro or someone that's on its way out, my suggestion would be have a look at Bill Bass and Troy Starr's session on what's happening with SharePoint Server 2016 and beyond.
Yeah.
We actually had a guy, where was it? I did a webinar yesterday, and we did a recap of ESPC. And one of the gentlemen was complaining about feature packs not delivering on the promise, and where's Microsoft going with SharePoint Server 2019. And even people that are on the tap are not getting the necessary information that they were hoping to get, seeing as SharePoint 2019 and all the other Office products are going into public preview second half of next year.
I think so, yeah.
I do ever think that people are holding back, or Microsoft's holding back because of SharePoint conference in Vegas.
Surely.
I don't know if they're holding back. I mean, there's enough new stuff that's happening on a regular basis that is there a need to hold back? I mean, I know they're doing a little bit. They want the major events to be, have a little bit of a punch to them, but I mean, there's just so much that's happening. And I mean, honestly, I mean, how much, were you really surprised by any of the announcements out of Ignite? I mean, were you blindsided by anything that we either had not already heard about, that's been in preview, or maybe as MVPs we've seen it had a little bit of an advanced notice of?
I think the big one was Skype. That was the only one that was a bit of a, we kind of, because there was no slipping, right? There was that little sort of faux pas that they had around putting it into the Office 365 message center, and then it was out. And for me, that's had the biggest impact at the event. We knew Teams was around and what Teams was doing, and they announced SharePoint in 2019. But the big hoorah was definitely Skype, and you'll see. Darrell, have you been to your Community Connection Day yet?
This is one thing that, if I was to say what else was I doing since I got back from Ignite, it was definitely catching up with other customer engagements and work, and I had to miss it. So they did have one here locally in Auckland, New Zealand, and I didn't get along to it.
So, Christian, when you go to yours, go have a conversation with the Skype guys.
Yeah. Well, for those that aren't aware, so we're actually focusing on that topic for the Collab Talk Tweet Jam for November. So that's happening on November 30th at 8 a.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. GMT. So the topic is moving Skype to Microsoft Teams. And so I'm actually reaching out and building out the expert panel, trying to get some of the Skype and Teams Microsoft folks to join that, as well as members of the community. And so there's a lot of discussion around it. But see, I would say, Alistair, like, that wasn't a surprise. So I've actually known some aspects of what was happening for well over a year and a half. I know the timing of it was unfortunate in what happened. And it wasn't like somebody accidentally pushed it to the message center. There's this whole chain of events with just code being updated that triggered something in the system. So it was unintentional and unfortunate. I think impacted the timing of the conversations around that. And then Microsoft scrambled to kind of clean up and fix that. But that's part of what we're going to be going through and talking about in the Tweet Jam next week. So hopefully we'll have both of you guys on, because I know Darrell doesn't like to sleep, so he's happy.
Oh, it's another 5 a.m.
conversation at 3 a.m. or whatever that is for you. Yeah.
I saw the invite come through, and I did accept to sit on the panel with you. We actually spoke about it yesterday as well, myself and Vlad, talking about all the panel beating that needs to go into Skype now before Skype actually disappears. So they're a good couple of years away from making that.
Yeah. No, it's not going to be a rush thing, and it does not change the telephony aspect. If you've got the server version of that, still there, still supported. There's a 2019 version of that. So. Yeah.
But I think they're doing a lot around telephony inside of Teams now. I know there was some chatter around what they're doing with the PSTN stuff and looking at taking that code base from Skype and, like they did with Link, into Skype, strangely enough. It's the same thing. They cross-pollinated the code. I don't know if when they bought Skype, they took the Skype code and stuck it into Link, or vice versa. I can't remember. I know it was one or the other. But so it's interesting to see what is going to happen. I suppose customers that gravitate to Office 365 that do not have any UC investment on-prem would naturally not want to worry about Skype for Business. Right. Initially, it would be seen as a secondary or a B2B and a B2C sort of engagement. Otherwise, you have to get people into Teams, and I don't know where Microsoft is going. I think they're taking a chance, big risk in gluing Skype inside of Teams, and then eventually,
the way you're describing it. Yeah. If I cut in, like the way you're describing it, we don't want to leave people with the impression that they're just taking the same code from Skype and the same mistakes and the same issues and dropping them into Teams. What they have done is recreated that stack completely. So they are building similar features or parallel features. And when they're bringing that PST capability across, it will be working with the E5 license that is your PSTN in the cloud. So that's where... there's that thought of, well, do we still need on-prem? Certainly you do if you need to have some of that local capabilities and you want maybe some dependency there. We still have, even though we want to be able to move everything to the cloud, our telephony is not as forgiving. So if you do have the likes of your voice services in there, but you don't have great internet connectivity as infrastructure in your city and in your town, then you're going to get an ish kind of experience. Where if you have it on-prem and you might want to make use of call center capabilities and really complex flows and things like that, bolting on various different third-party tools, then you still need that on-prem. So it's a journey, but it is definitely beginning, and they're making it far easier to transition because of the way that they're having that interoperability between the two systems.
And there's a reason why the vendors that specialize in that are usually dedicated in that space, because it's a completely different. It's not like, hey, we do SharePoint, let's now go add on the telephony aspect of Skype for Business. It's a specialization. It's a lot of these guys. I mean, I worked in telecom years back, and so a lot of remember when I joined Microsoft back in 2006. There were a bunch of people that had similar backgrounds, but on the engineering side, that moved over from West Coast U.S. phone backgrounds, telephony backgrounds, over into communicator, link, and now Skype, that side of things. So, yeah, it's a different beast entirely.
Has there ever been any product that has changed its name so much? List it.
That would be an interesting blog post of looking at the history of names and certainly in Microsoft products. Well, let me jump in. I think you'll see a parallel theme, but I'm actually surprised. Like, we picked our 3 picks individually, didn't compare notes, and we don't have anything overlapping.
That's very surprising.
I really thought there'd at least be one, but
yeah.
So here's my 3, and you'll see the kind of the theme here of where I'm interested. But so one of the sessions is, the first one is Microsoft Teams and Yammer, Velocity meets Community, and that's BRK 2147. So that's MVP Melanie Hortz, Simon Denton, and Sarah Krajewski. Hopefully I pronounced that right.
I attended that one in person. I intend to actually add the in-person video. You're missing that from the recording, but you've got to see their costumes.
So I know. So I'm looking forward to that. Maybe you can add on a link when I do my blog post around this. I really like this one. And look, I don't mean to be like mean. There's a bunch of fluff at the beginning of it as it kind of sets the stage for the later pieces. But when you're going in and you're talking about teams and the cultural aspects of how the way that we're collaborating, teams are working is evolving and changing, you need to have that intro. But what's fantastic about this, and why I recommend this, is because they then jump into some very real world scenarios of that Teams versus Yammer, how they work with not a small company, Cargill. I mean, huge, multinational. I don't remember how many thousands of employees they have, but I think it's a great walking through and talking about those examples and feedback, specific scenarios where they're using Teams and leveraging that and that inner loop, and then Yammer for that outer loop. So that's, if you are battling that which tool to use when, you definitely want to take a look at this session. I mean, any other feedback takeaways from that, Darrell, that since you sat through that one?
Yeah, they did have a third leg to that presentation, which was around security and compliance. Our friend Simon Denton dressed up as Iron Man to represent that.
Nice.
So you did have some Marvel characters in there, but it really was, it was really well put, how the two cooperate with Teams and with Yammer, and how you've got a few capabilities that'll make them intertwine a lot. So I know there's a feeling out in the IT pro world that why Yammer, and will Yammer be replaced by Teams? But in the real world, you've got organizations that are making good use of both.
Right. I think that there's a lot more. I mean, Alistair, we talked about that whole which tool to use when came up as we were spending our 2.5 weeks together down in South Africa doing those. We did 10 events over those 2.5 weeks, the 3 SharePoint Saturdays. And well, you weren't at all of I did the 4 events, but that question is very common. And I don't know if there's any other content that you guys saw at Ignite that kind of answered that, which tool to use when. There's quite a few. I
know F-Points generated some use cases there. Jax tweeted it. I think it was today or yesterday.
Yesterday. Yeah. I just saw that. There's a new blog post, which I've not read yet.
Yeah. So I think that we're getting to the nuts and bolts now of when to use what. I still think it's very gray. It's extremely gray. Yammer, Teams, is going to be a constant battle there on who wins what. And then
I don't see it that way at all. I just have to vehemently disagree with that. It's not a battle. It's a conversation. If you're looking at the technology and taking out your team and your business scenarios entirely, then yes, then it can be confusing, and there's definitely overlap there. But when you're talking about from the problem statement of here's my organization, here's the culture of how we work, here's how we communicate, and that for this project, this effort, this business unit, we need this type of solution that meets this, but this other project team, that more high velocity, I just keep using that word, but you have that more, project closer in that inner loop type team effort, two different types of technology, two different communication styles for that. And so it's not a, which one do I go and use? It's more of a, here's the tool in my tool belt that fits this.
Yeah, also, I think it's the size of the organization. We use both in Dimension Data, all right? And we use it very successfully. So all 29,000 of us consume stuff through Dimension Data's global Yammer network. I think we had a CEO resign in Yammer. Literally telling all of us, listen, I'm out. There's no mail, straight in Yammer. But now with Teams, when we have a project, we naturally spin up a section in Teams, and that's where all the content and collateral is now stored. And we can chat to the project manager. I can liaise with the UX person, with the developer, and the PM, and we've got a recorded section for the conversation. A lot of times you jump on a Skype call or it's lost in mail somewhere. Now at least we are working on chat-based information management. So content comes to you instead of you going to content, which is great because an idea starts with a conversation. Proposal starts with a Skype meeting, and attaching that to conversations is always great.
That's actually a great segue into the next topic, which is a session by Yina Arenas, David Lavenda with Harmony, and Wes Hackett called "Build Smarter Apps with Office Using the Microsoft Graph," and that's BRK 3080. Did either of you attend that session?
No.
That wasn't one of the 2.5 there. So that one, Yina is a great presenter, and her energy and talking about graph. And what's awesome about this is it's an excellent overview of the Microsoft Graph, which is a huge part of the future around all of Microsoft's collaboration technology. So Yina goes through and they talk about, it's not an overview, a marketing overview. It's definitely not a 100 level. It's a 200 to 300 level. They do go in behind the code, show you and build some things, show you how it was extended. So you get that sense of how the graph is extensible. David and Wes then go in and show some specific examples through these intelligent apps. So you've got a vendor doing that. You've got an MVP going in and showing how they've used that. So it's definitely an introduction to the Microsoft Graph that kicks the tires and shows you what's under the hood. And again, it's important for people to know and understand what the graph is and where it fits, because that's the missing link that ties together all these disparate tools, where we argue about, do we use SharePoint or Yammer or Teams? And eventually those are all just interfaces into the same data, the assets, the artifacts that are created and stored in the graph. And then what makes sense to be accessible through those experiences, all of it will be. So in theory, I could go into my SharePoint team site and do a search, and it then pulls conversations that are happening in Yammer and Teams, all permission trimmed, that are relevant through that search result in context to that project. It's tied to your Office 365 groups and the graph within that user experience. That's where it's going.
I think they called it the Insight data set, if memory serves, from the intelligent graph section, around being able to look the machine learning and the AI, which we haven't really covered, around serverless and all of those funny things.
I haven't gotten to my third one yet, so.
Oh, right. Okay. But machine learning and AI, definitely what the graph does behind the scenes, it is very, very, it's actually quite scary, how they glue everything together.
Yeah, I wouldn't phrase it as scary. I would put it more exciting. But some people get nauseous on roller coasters. That's probably you, Alistair.
Do you think we'll see? Do you think we'll see the delve tile maybe disappear? I'm being a little cheeky here in saying that, but I don't visit Delve. Delve has actually come into me in so many different places now. And when we say Delve, we mean graph. Right. I'm in the start menu now, rather the waffle now, and I'm being presented with recent documents and connection documents directly from there. It's in OneDrive. It's been brought into the app, so I don't really need to visit a Delve page anymore. Even a web part brings me most.
The same thing about, how they touted the new Office.com's the search experience. I'm like, I don't need another search destination. I need this capability integrated into where I'm working. So I mean, look, you need to have a place where you can go that is, has access to and can delve into. I'm using that word, delve into all of those assets, no matter where they are, in a federated way. But it makes more sense to have that capability integrated into the workloads where I'm doing that activity. So that's
it does, and I think.
No, go ahead.
I think it's like Darrell says, content is now coming to you. Right? So if we're going to spend most of our time in Teams, they'll extend that capability to bring the content to you inside of Teams. And we already see content being able to be surfaced now. You can pull the news feed from your SharePoint sites and additional pages into Teams. So you never need to leave Teams as the interface that you're working inside of. So be it chat-based, be it sort of news feedy based, everything's going to be stuck inside of Teams. And it's great what Microsoft is doing around the ML and the AI stuff.
Well, see, and I don't even, like you just used that phrase, everything's going to be, stuck within Teams and accessible. It's like that's a UI that gives you access to what's happening. It's really just somebody mentioned this, that so I didn't make this up, but it's or coined this phrase, but that Teams is the user experience for a group, because it really is that best way to serve everything that's accessible through the group. But my third one kind of fits in with this. Again, thank you for the segue, Alistair. But it's the session title is Let's Talk About Conversation Design, BRK 3301. Anyone see that one?
Oh, yeah, I remember that number. Yeah, it's in my playlist.
So this is, and hopefully I get his name right. So he's a senior program manager at Microsoft. Vishwak Sina. Vishwak, yeah. Anyway, so it's another important topic, which is bot development, and more specifically, conversation as a service. And so conversation as a service is really about surfacing in an automated manner all of these artifacts that are in the graph. So it's really about the future of that UX design. So the
conversation as a service.
Yes. So the content is being, and this is, I've said this for many, many years, that content, documents, lists, data are really being displaced in knowledge management and collaboration by conversation. Like I saw this with years of SharePoint, where less and less it was about uploading documents. It was more about the data contained within lists. That's where the collaboration was happening. And now it's around conversation. And so some of it's text-based, Teams, the chat-based, that Skype, but more and more of it is that it's, we record a video, that it's in stream, that it's, the AI goes in and identifies all the content, knows who we are based on our faces, and tags it, classifies it, pushes it out there based on the permissions. If somebody's following me, suddenly they get a notification that they have access to this new video that Christian just uploaded that's in there. But the future of collaboration is about conversation, and bots today are at the forefront of that movement. And I'll be the first to say, a lot of the chat bots, the things that are out there, the options in Teams for organizations that are new, that are trying to understand how it fits, most of them that are out there are completely useless. And it's at the early stages, and a lot of companies are still experimenting, trying to understand how to better leverage. But there is exciting stuff happening in that space. So Vishwak goes through and he explains the bot framework. Stop laughing when I say the guy's name, Alistair. Mr. Pugin, come on. So he provides a walkthrough of the Microsoft bot framework, and then we also get a sneak peek into the Microsoft's conversation designer. I have no idea about the time frame for that, but it's to help with the collaborative design and development of bots. And I think is that next stage is because they
For training?
in the development. No, actually helps you model it of what you're building. So it'll help with the development in a collaborative way of bots. So that's really the next step, is that we are getting better about how we're capturing all of the knowledge assets, no matter what format they're coming in, and all tied to the graph. Permissions are controlled by groups, and then you have, because they're in the groups, we can apply governance and security, all the policies around that. But then to go and surface that through in an automated way through these intelligent bots, that's where things are headed. That's the next great leap of.
So we might hear Alistair turn to Alexa, can you tell Cortana to get that document and share it to my team?
No, Darrell, we don't even have to deal with Alistair. We go to the Alistair bot and find out, what's going on. And I'll be like, and we could just be like, Alistair bot, shut up, stop talking, go away.
I like that conversation as a service. That's perfect.
So, all right, guys, I know. So we've been going here 45 minutes, and just to wrap up, any parting thoughts as we conclude here? Any other grand takeaways that people need to think about or take a look at as part of the body of content for Ignite 2017?
Change is happening. Keep up with it. Keep looking back at it. But that's where, again, conversation is actually where that change is being discussed, and I'm hearing about it. So find your sources, engage in the tech community, watch content such as ours or Christians, or you just find a few sources that you do find valuable and just keep up with change.
From my side, in closing, Azure is where it's at right now. I think for the IT pro that doesn't want to be a business consultant, move to Azure. Head to the Cloud Society. Find out about all the learning resources that there are there. You can still remain an IT pro. Have a look at Azure. Azure is where it's at right now. It's
none of us selected it as a topic for the three to take a look at now. But and I would just say on that, you're so right. And guys, I think we need to do this again. Maybe next month we'll do this again with another 3 each, because there is so much great content that's out there, that important content. And if we can help surface that, great.
We could add that this is what has happened since the announcement, and give a bit of an update about what we're seeing and what people are talking about.
Yeah, definitely. Well, gentlemen, thanks a lot. Alistair, I sorry to cut you off there, but only unintentional.
The future is Azure. The future is serverless. The future is in flannel, actually.
I heard that podcast. Try and say Kubernetes for me again.
Kubernetes.
Oh, good.
Kubernetes.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. Just to sign off, I'm going to do my Alistair. Wait, just a second. I got to finish this look, though.
Since it's all caps.
There we go.
There we go.
Oh, yeah.
VR.
Oh, yeah. All right, gents.
Yeah. Hey, thanks a lot, guys, for it's dark in here now suddenly. But thanks a lot for your time, guys, and we'll talk to you soon. We'll do it again soon.
Cheers.
Bye now.